Today on the Caucus, as Newt Gingrich officially enters the race for president, we take a closer look. Columnist Matt Bai answers reader questions about his nascent campaign, and Katharine Q. Seelye, who covered Mr. Gingrich in the 1990s, reflects on the politician she remembers.
I do believe that we have an extraordinarily fundamental choice to make about the very future of this country.
My column about Newt Gingrich yesterday and his presidential campaign brought a huge array of responses. This was about his sense of himself and history and why he believes himself to be a very consequential player in the history of his time and therefore a viable candidate for president. And we wanted to address a few of the questions today. The first one I picked here is from Perry M. in St. Louis. Perry commented online. He said, "Do we need another old guy to run for GOP president again? How many times do we need to vote for white-haired dolts who think it's my turn?" Well, I don't know if I'd call Newt Gingrich a white-haired dolt, actually, but I do think there's a very valid point here about generation. If you look at the Republican field as it's beginning to shape up, there was a first debate last week, and maybe the only top-tier candidate in that stage might have been Tim Pawlenty, the governor of Minnesota. But then look at the other potential top-tier candidates, let's say Mitt Romney, perhaps John Huntsman, the former governor of Utah, perhaps Mitch Daniels, the sitting governor of Indiana. All of them would turn a generational corner for Republicans, the same corner that Democrats effectively turned when they nominated Barack Obama in 2008. Gingrich, on the other hand, would be 69 when he took the oath of office. He's considerably older than all these guys. And I do think it raises an important question for Republican voters about whether the party needs to move along generationally or whether perhaps there's something reassuring about a candidate who takes them back to a time where they felt the country was on a better track. Now, this one comes from Facebook. It's Richard Haupert Jr. I hope I pronounced that right. Richard says, "How can a serial adulterer and a lapsed evangelical run on a quote-unquote family values platform?" And the reason I've chosen this one is because it's in so many of the comments. I would say a dominant theme of the mail I got too is about Newt Gingrich's adultery and his past marriages and his personal transgressions. Now, I get that there's an issue here of hypocrisy because, of course, Speaker Gingrich was one of the people who led the impeachment process against Bill Clinton. But here's the thing. I just don't really care about candidates' sex lives and personal lives and marriages. And I think voters care less and less. Now, you can go to like a million blogs and they'll talk all about his past transgressions in his personal life and whether it matters to voters and all of that. You're just not really going to find it in my work. Now, the final thing I want to address is Dave in New Jersey. Dave commented online on the piece, and he said, "Never was a fan of Newt, but to all those who are discounting his chances, remember one thing. Who would have thought in 2007 that a black junior senator from Illinois would be president the following year?" Dave, I commend you because I think this is a really excellent point for all of us to remember, covering it and reading about it, which is we have no idea at this point of the process who's a viable candidate and who isn't. With the possible exception of Donald Trump. I would say Donald Trump is probably not going to get the Republican nomination. And actually Herb Cain. He's going to lose too. But it's a good point.
I came to Washington in 1994 with the Times. At that point, Newt was already in Congress, and it was clear he was setting a national agenda, campaigning to be not just speaker, but sort of leader of the party.
We have a contract with America. We had 330 candidates sign the contract. We put it in TV Guide as a full-page ad.
He was better at that, at sort of the outside oppositional role, than in the role of actually governing. One of the stories that I think really illustrates a lot about Newt's temperament was after the government shutdown in the mid-90s. He told a story. He came to a print breakfast one morning, and he suddenly told us that he had really been miffed on an overseas trip with President Clinton on Air Force One. He had been relegated to the back of the plane. He had to come up the back steps. He had expected the president to use this time to negotiate with him about the budget, and the president wasn't interested. And Newt said essentially that he shut down the government because he was miffed at being relegated to the back of the plane. The famous picture that came out of this was the Daily News that then had a big picture of him in diapers saying, "Crybaby." I don't think it was necessarily his doing that was a mistake. I think he does have a very grandiose sense of himself. He sees himself in this great tradition of political history, as one of the greats stalking the earth. He did kind of go off into the wilderness, and that's what's interesting now, is that his last campaign was in '98. So this is quite a while to kind of come back on the scene, not having been in even a competitive race for so many years.